Hi, everyone. I can't believe I still have the sun in my face. I've did everything to try and hide it. I don't know if you guys can see it. I've got all of these little additional spots. I'm trying to move around a bit. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us for another edition of the Loeries Creative Hour. It's going to be a really, really amazing one. I'm going to say hello to everyone quickly and introduce everyone. We're joined by an all-grey house today. So we have Steph van Niekerk, who is a Loeries committee member. I'm going to start with Loeries first. Loeries committee member and creative director at Grey. Sibusiso Mkhwanazi, who's creative group head, also at Grey, and TJ Njozela, creative director at Grey. Welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
You're gonna see me try and duck these little spots. I changed my seating position, and this is why you get these little
keep it on. It suits you.
It's not art direction, I promise you.
Because you are so enlightened, you see.
It looks like I don't know what it is. but thanks for joining us. And just before we get into it, just also welcome to everyone who's made the time to join us today from across Africa and the Middle East. So amazing having all of you here. We have an amazing group of people on Zoom, but if you can get into Zoom, we also have a fantastic group on Facebook. So everyone on Facebook, just to let you know, as usual, we obviously can't pick up your questions or your comments over here, but I'm assisted by Clocky from the Loeries in the background, who's going to pick up all of the comments from Facebook and questions and pass there. So feel free to share any questions at that point as well. If you're on Zoom, you've got the Q&A function, you've got the chat function. Please share everything you can. An ad break, always very, oh, Clocky, I cannot share my screen anymore. Okay, maybe I can't share my screen out there. So instead of showing you the ad break, I'll just let you know. So important is Loeries entries are still ongoing. We were due to close at the end of May, but we received a number of requests to please extend. So we have extended entries until the 15th of June. So mark that date, 15th of June. If you haven't got your entries in, please get it in as soon as possible. We are overwhelmed by the number of amazing entries that are coming in, and I think it's just testament to the fact that, you know, across Africa and Middle East, a lot of amazing work's been done even in this COVID period. People have been fighting and dealing with this challenge of COVID, but we also have all of these other challenges. And I think, Steph, going on to you as well, I mean, today we're speaking about the invisible fight. So tell us more about this. What do we mean by this invisible fight, and what are some of the key aspects of this that you'd like to discuss today?
Well, I think it is a part of the creative process and a part of the fight we don't really talk about. You know, when we were brainstorming the themes, it really is quite a broad range of topics. I think it's true to all creatives, and I'm not just speaking for myself, although I will draw on a lot of personal experience because I've walked this road. We all face terrible trials of self-doubt and, you know, wondering if we're good enough to even be in the industry. Our industry is so driven by credentials and awards that the flip side of that is that we're in danger of putting our self-worth into those awards. And I think, you know, not only on an award scale, but every day, as a writer, I tremendously struggled with I hated writing. It was a traumatic experience. Although I was very good at it, and I did it for 20 years, and I still do it. It's not something that is easy or pleasurable. And we often look at the people we admire, and we think, if only I could be like that. But the truth is, everyone suffers from it. And I think that was the breakthrough in my career, is to understand, to actually. Once at Cannes, I was sitting down and I was having coffee with a vice president of Leo Burnett Canada, and it was a woman, an ex-South African that I always looked up to, and she just opened up and said how disappointed she's feeling and how insecure she is because of the results and what she's up against. And for me, that was the turning point, to understand we are not alone in the struggles of mental health and of you know, anxiety, depression, and even substance abuse. It all kind of like lives together, and we are not alone. And I think there's something very powerful in knowing that you're not alone.
Amazing. Sibusiso, I see you nodding your head quite a bit as Steph was speaking. Tell me, what would you like to add? What are some of the challenges that you've also faced?
It's so weird, right? You know, there are so many people that I also look up to, and it boggles my mind that they also still suffer the same things that I suffer and go through, like that anxiety of, am I good enough? And it actually has put a lot of fear, you know, in the past in myself to go, will I ever be, you know, happy as a creative? If this person who is like this mega star globally, who still feels that insecurity of, am I good enough? If he feels like that in his ripe old age, will I ever reach a stage where I'll be happy? So I can definitely attest to what Steph is talking about. And I think for me, one thing that I kind of did to help myself creatively is I looked at the whole thing of, you know, agencies are giving us like medical aids and stuff. And then I kind of went to go see a therapist a few years ago. And, you know, it afforded me that opportunity to really look inside myself and dig deep and understand where all of these feelings are coming from. And to understand that, guys, whatever we go through, it's not unique to us. And we got to just understand that a lot of people go through the same things we go through. And it's always good to kind of reach out and talk to these people. Because I'm sure, like when Steph had a conversation with the lady as well in Cannes, you know, she, as much as it was scary, but there was that comfort to go, okay, cool. I'm not alone. And, you know, maybe it's just having to talk to people and having to deal with it, you know, talking and dealing with it. You know what I mean? It's a very tough issue.
I mean, TJ, from your side, just as, you know, Steph and Sibusiso have given their overall thoughts in terms of just setting the scenes for themselves. How about for yourself? Can you share a little bit of insight in terms of your experiences in this area?
Yeah, man. So I think the industry that we work in is a creative industry, you know, and creativity is one of those things that can be subjective. For example, if you work in an accounting firm, right, you crunch the numbers are there, you know whether you're right or wrong, it's there, you know, the proof is there. Whereas as a creative, I find that, which was my personal struggle as well, like coming up, was that I find that there's a lot of rejection that you have to deal with, you know, and as a creative person, you spend so much time brainstorming, thinking about a thing and trying to really grapple with the brief. Then someone who's usually like your creative director or creative group head or a senior be like, nah, that's terrible, that's shit. And then it's like, oh my gosh, I've spent like 2 days working on this, you know, and you're just gonna kill it like that. And now I have to spend another 2 days thinking about it when it was so hard in the first place. That rejection is quite intense. And it happens every step of the way, because once it's gone through the internal process, then the client says, nah, don't really like it. That's boring. You know, so it becomes quite a heavy thing to deal with on a constant basis. And I think, especially in our industry where it's different from being, for example, a fine artist or photographer, we have to be creative on demand, right?
Yeah.
Which is a very, very difficult thing to do. And you pair that up with rejection, it creates the space of like, wow, what am I doing really? And that's where the unhappiness and the feelings of anxiety come from. You know, I think what Sbu mentioned is a great way to deal with that is actually speaking to someone about it, you know, a professional. That's how I dealt with it personally as well, is I went to see a psychologist and spoke about these issues and everything, and came to the realization that although, because I'm also a perfectionist, although I'll probably never feel like I've done the best I possibly can, this thing is the most beautiful it possibly can be, it's as funny as it possibly can be, I can rest assured from the fact that the people around me enjoy what I've done, people who see it enjoy what I've done. And that also gives a great sense of achievement and reward at the end of it, because then you start to realize that it's not actually an internal battle, because the things we do make and create are for other people. And if those people see it and love it, then it feels good. Yeah, that's, yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah, I think I just want to
Mhm.
add on to that,
Please.
TJ. You know, as a creative as well, man, I've started having a different approach to how I interact with fellow creatives. You know, you just have to be kinder, man. You know, you have to acknowledge
Yeah.
your fellow creatives, just even if it's a, hey man, you're doing well, or we're pushing, this looks amazing. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it definitely helps, you know, with the morale. Cause I know, like you said, our industry is, you know, the way it rewards excellence, it kind of doesn't reward the failure or the, you know, the struggle of being a creative, you know what I mean? So I think for me personally, I think what I try to do every day, especially at Gray and everywhere where I kind of interact with creatives, is just to every day, hey man, you know, you pushing, you're doing your thing, it's looking amazing, you know, it's we need that every day. We kind of need that. That's how we need to interact with our guys, you know.
Agree. And I think just for everyone who's joined us again, thanks for joining us. If you want to be part of the chat, please, Q&A is there, the chat function. Just want to say hello to a few people. I can't say hello to everyone, but Adam Tate, Babalwa Makuluma, Hamilton Zwane, Musa Mabena, Robin Adams, just a few people who are joining us. Thanks for being part of it. And to everyone as well on Facebook who is tuning in, thanks for making the time. You know, Steph, one of the things that TJ was actually mentioning when he was chatting was about this it's like this constant cycle of rejection. You work, you push all this effort and love into this idea and into the execution of it, and you get shut down quite a bit. Do you feel that our industry is probably one that delivers rejection a lot more than others? Is this one where you have to deal with rejection a lot more than others that are out there?
I don't know if our industry is more than others. I think writers also face brutal rejection, and some famous writers were rejected year after year. And, you know, so I think in the creative industries, yes, perhaps it's more profound because the rejection is more profound. You cannot create something if a little piece of your heart is not in it. And so with every little campaign we do or everything we put in front of a client, there's a little piece of me and there's a little piece of the team. And you know, that's why the rejection is perhaps more profound, because you create with your heart and your mind, but there's definitely a little piece of you in it. So it's very difficult to separate my work from me, because it's intertwined. And I think as you get older and you get more resilience, and that's why it's important to get resilience, because rejection's part of the game, and actually it's going to make you stronger and it's going to make you better. That saying, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Sadly, it's true. But I think as you grow up in the industry, and the guys who tend to do very well are the guys who can get up quickly. Resilience for me, resilience and grit is probably as important as talent, because you can have the most talent, and if you can't handle that criticism or the rejection, you're not going to get up again. And you have to keep getting up and keep getting bashed down and keep getting up. So yeah.
And that's a good point in terms of, you know, needing that resilience and grit. But I think even, and I've seen this, and I think we all know people, even the strongest people reach a point where they just struggle and they just can't cope anymore. Then you still need to push forward, but you're just spent, the battery is drained, all the energy is sapped. So Sibusiso, when people get to a point like this, I mean, especially looking at our industry, what are some of the coping mechanisms, and not necessarily just the positive, but I mean, what are sometimes even some of the negative coping mechanisms that we gravitate to as an industry in general?
I think, a lot of what the industry, from what I've seen, it's always kind of wanted people to be extroverts. And a lot of people find themselves going into a bit of like substances to keep that extrovert vibe going. And I think sometimes as creatives, we try find these sort of coping mechanisms that will keep us going, to keep us bubbly. And I think sometimes I just feel like we gotta just, as soon as that stress or that doubt creeps in, personally, you just have to call it out. When you notice it, just call it out before anything bad happens, you know what I mean? And you try search for that momentum or search for that goal in other places, you know what I mean? So, and I know last year was very tough on most of us as creatives, because most of us live alone, and most of us in the space of like that lockdown, we had to kind of search for new things to keep us going, because we don't have the energy of other creatives around us. So we don't have the energy of family around us. So it really put a lot of people in a very tight corner. And I know that they're really trying to get back into it now. But I think, yeah, it just when that moment happens, you need to just call it out, like personally, just have that, just recognize it. You have to see it, because if you don't see it, you're just gonna go into a very dark place. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think I just want to add, if I
Yes,
can.
please. Yeah.
So based on the kind of negative coping strategies and stuff, in 2010, on the eve of my 30th birthday that year, I completely fucked out. I just didn't think I was good enough. I hadn't won in a big way globally, although I had won a lot locally. And my grand passed away. I developed a panic disorder. And at that stage, I was drinking very heavily, and the panic disorder forced my drinking into another level. Like, seriously, I just wanted to pass out. Never drank during the day, went to work. From the outside, everything was fine. No one at work even knew anything. But the truth was, my panic disorder was so bad, I couldn't get up the stairs at Ogilvy. So I'd stand at the bottom because my legs wouldn't work. And then if someone saw me, I'd be pretending to tie my shoelaces, and they were slops. They weren't even shoelaces, but and then Fran and I made the Topsy ad, and the Selena, she was a very sick person in advanced stages of HIV and AIDS, and she agreed to have us film for 3 months and have us film her. And she was the person, actually, it was like, if Selena's brave, I need to be brave, I need to get help. I went to rehab shortly after. And, when I was sitting in rehab, I just sobbed because they were saying, I can't drink again. And I was like, you guys don't understand. Wine is the way. I don't know how to come up with ideas without wine. It's the source of my creativity. And in fact, when I got out, I was making plans to get out of the industry because I didn't know if I could possibly do my job. Regardless, to say, since 2010, that when I got out of rehab in March, we won gold at Cannes for Topsy. And it was almost like I had to sort myself out before the things could start. And it's still an ongoing struggle. I've been sober for 11 years, but I just want to say right now that the belief that you need substances to be creative is a fallacy. It's a lie. And I'm living proof of that.
No, I love that. And I mean, TJ, just following out from what Steph said, I'm, almost in there's a stereotype, isn't there? There's a stereotype even outside of the industry that creatives, they like a little bit of, sure, take your pick of the substance, but it's almost expected that, creatives are out there and creating because there's some sort of substances involved and stuff like that as well. I mean, is this really just a negative stereotype that's impacting people, impacting mental and physical health purely because it exists out there and might not be tuned to reality?
Yeah, I think, first off, when I joined the industry, I joined in the era of efficiency and optimization and all of that stuff, right? Whereas before that was the sex, drugs, and rock and roll era. Yeah, and people still have that, I suppose, perspective of what the industry is. And I remember one time someone was like, "Oh, you work in advertising?" I'm like, "Yeah." And they're like, "Okay, so do you do drugs?" I'm like, "Fuck, man, I wish I had time to do drugs because it just isn't any time," right? I think now what's happened though is that it has become more of a coping mechanism than a thing that people do for fun, you know? And it's also propagated by that negative perception that the industry is full of druggies and this is what people do. So then people, that's probably the reason why that person is successful, because they're doing coke, you know, and people then get into that habit as well, which I totally agree with Steph is a complete fallacy. And the thing that makes you a better creative isn't a substance or a I don't know, a mechanism essentially or anything, right? It's your desire and your passion for creating things. That's where it starts, you know? Like for me, becoming a writer, I'd always been writing my whole life. I used to write poetry. I used to write letters to girls at school, trying to win their love. I was, you know, writing songs, and I think that's where that passion came from initially. And if you look at it from the perspective of where does that thing come from, you know, it's something that's innate, and all you need to do is nurture it and grow it, as feed it with negative behavior, for example, drugs or going down into a depressive mode, you know, because some people also, apart from substance abuse, believe that they can only be creative in a certain state, you know, like I can't work in a team because I'm a solo thinker, you know, and that also is not true. It's about opening up your mind more and more. And the more you open your mind to new things, the better you become creatively as well, because the way that you think changes, you know, and the way that you view life changes. So, for example, with me, what I do as, I don't know, like a regular thing, I generally like to go where people are and people who think differently and behave differently to what I do. You know, so I'd like go to Mkhwanazi in Hillbrow, for example. I'll go to Ekasi and party at a Chisanyama, or just visit a hospice, and essentially just gather insights on how people behave, how people think, and what gets people ticking, because that is also core and fundamental to what we do. In order to create a good piece of work, you need that insight. And I find that trying to find that within yourself is a lot more difficult, because then you don't have the exposure that you need from the outside world, and your mind isn't open to new things. You know, an example that I like to use, which isn't, I suppose, advertising per se, it's a business example, is if you take a look at Nokia, right? Nokia was the best-selling phone for a very, very long time. You know, I mean, everybody who was around at the time knows a 3310. It was like, if you had a 3310, you were the coolest person. Whereas now that role has gone to Apple, right? But at the time, Nokia did not think outside the box. They refused to see the change that was happening in the mobile industry, right? And kept doing the thing that they knew how to do, and eventually got outpaced by competitors. There's literally no reason why they couldn't have done the smartphone. If you think about it, they had the money, they had the infrastructure, they had the business minds, they had the creative people, all of that. It was all there. It's just in the thinking of not adopting new thoughts or new behaviors where it actually fell apart. And I think it's the same with us, is that when you have a one-track mind, it becomes different to open up different avenues to be creative and find those gems and those beautiful insights, you know. And then it propagates that feeling of, am I good enough because no one likes my, you know, because the way that you're thinking is because it's one of those things that we always say, oh, we've heard that idea before. Oh, that's already been done, you know? And then it's like, oh gosh, it's already been done. And then you keep thinking the same train of thought, but exploring different ways is what helps. And I find also shifting your perspective from, for example, the rejection, right? Because the rejection is how you feel as an individual, but the person who's giving it to you is actually seeing it as building or criticism, right? Which isn't necessarily negative, but it's to make your work better. And I think how we look at ourselves and how we look at what we do makes a huge impact on how we do it, you know. And as long as we do things with kindness and with the right motive, I think we could actually be really great as people, you know, even though we have our weaknesses and flaws for sure.
Yeah.
But we'll be dope.
Amazing. I think I just also want to backtrack a little bit, you know, in terms of the discussion in terms of the substance abuse idea, just maybe just as a general between all of you.
Yeah.
Right now in the industry, you obviously know lots of people and you all have like white circles in the industry. Do you know of people who are using substances to basically be able to cope with the challenges of their job and their day-to-day life?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's sad.
I'm on mute. I think, you know,
that seemed like a general consensus, absolute yes from everyone, which is scary. It's absolutely scary, yeah.
But I do think, and I can say this as the oldest person here, I think, it is, I'm amazed with how together the younger people are in the industry. In my day, it was much more rife and much more prevalent. But I think that's a generational thing, you know, and I'm really excited because I often like joke with my teams going, oh my God, you're so boring. Just go to a pub and drink or something. But, you know, like that was how I was trained at Red and Yellow. I had a great mentor, Brian Saltrip, and he often sent us to the pub if we stuck, you know, and I think that I can see a cultural and societal shift. And I've been sober for 11 years and now it's happening and more people are more open to moderation. I don't think self-destruction is as fashionable as it was in the 90s. And if you look at our role models and during that time in the 90s, it was Kurt Cobain and Trent Reznor, and, you know, and I do feel, yes, it's still happening. Yes, it's sad. And especially with the young people, it's a terrible thing to see talent blow up before it's even taken root. But I do feel like it is getting less, which is very positive.
Amazing. I just want to read some quick comments. I mean, Louise Johnson says, how lucky am I to get to work with these three legends every day? And Fran, amazing Fran Lacken, Loeries chairperson, I'll just throw that in there as well. Great point, Steph. Self-destruction isn't as fashionable. And I agree, Steph. I think that's such a good point. There was a time where that self-destructive, brooding image of the creative in the corner who you could not approach because they were, God knows, lost where, has totally changed. It's now a much more open environment of a creative who's actually out there and who wants to hear what you want to say and is not sitting closed up. But even though we've come to this point, and somebody alluded to this earlier as well, was that there's still pressures, right? And the pressures are just different today. So if it's not self-destruction, maybe in the other way, the other pressure today is this extroverted focused industry that expects you to be an extrovert, especially when you're meeting those brands who are your clients or anyone like this. Just this absolute desire to have this extroverted nature is a challenge when there's so many different personalities. I mean, Sibusiso, from your side, I don't know what everyone's personality type. Yeah, I'm an extrovert. I'm more of an ambivert. We'll figure this out. But I mean, we'll do our Myers-Briggs and take it. But I mean, from your own personal examples, I mean, whether it's yourself or people you know, Sibusiso, is there just too much of a challenge and pressure to be able to now just be vocal all the time?
So I must say, and because I'm a bit of an introvert, right? And when I got into the industry, geez, it felt as if like you had to be either the loud one in the room, thinking out aloud, or whatever you say needs to be like grand. And for me, I'm the type of person who's more of a thinker. I need to make sure whatever I say is right. It could take a day or 2 days, but when I say it, it needs to be right. And I think now with the rise of the internet, and I feel a lot of us creatives, we're expressing ourselves in different ways now. If it's not in the boardroom very loud or whatever, it's on Instagram showing the work, you know what I mean? And that gives you that satisfaction. So I think that's one thing that has saved us as creatives, is the rise of the internet, because it's given us different ways to express ourselves. It's also exposed us to different creative people, making it fashionable to be a creative person, where now you're seeing more successful creative people. Like, I'm sure, Steph, back in the day, you didn't see a lot of creative people in advertising or creative people making it, but now you're exposed to so many creative minds, so many creative people on the internet, on Instagram, making it, grinding, being successful. And that gives a lot of people motivation to go, okay, cool, I can't go into a dark place because I'm looking at all the amazing things that I see a different you is doing, or the amazing things that Spoo or Steph is doing. So I think it's the internet has given us a lot of things to kind of express and show, with ourselves as creatives. And I do recommend it highly to like a lot of creatives in our space to really explore that. If you want to do podcasting for a bit on the weekends, I think do it. You know what I mean? Just to kind of keep your mind busy and not to put you into that dark place. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you have a proposal.
I
in the
know, I
chat
was looking
there.
at that. Did you see that?
Have my baby Sabuda from GP. Can I please be godmother to those babies? I think they're so adorable. Just to pick up what Sabuda said, like I'm actually a complete introvert. I never realized it when I was drinking, because that's how I activated. But I am a complete introvert in advertising, and it's tough, because our industry is incredibly people-centric. So you have to be on all the time, you have to be engaging, you have to be giving constant feedback, chatting, all of that stuff. And it's introvert. An extrovert gets energy from other people, an introvert expends energy on other people. So it's completely draining and exhausting for an introvert. But I think Sabu is very right in terms of where the internet and our social channels have given us ways to break through or expose our work or share our thoughts in a way that is not verbal and not face-to-face, if that makes sense. So I think, yes, I think what remote working has done, as it has allowed the introverts a kind of space to flourish. And I think I can see it in a lot of the teams. They're actually doing better in a remote situation than in an open plan office, and vice versa. So I think I would be interested to see how the pandemic has affected the industry as a whole to accommodate introverts better.
Interesting. Fan had another great comment. She says there's been a really interesting piece of academic research from the Berlin School that shows that introverts are more represented at higher levels in the industry than extroverts. So they rise to the top, but at quite a high cost to themselves. So I'm going to post another link. So anyone who hasn't seen this is a website to 16personalities.com. It's a good overview where you can go and do your MBTI, your Myers-Briggs type indicator. if anyone's done that or doesn't know that. But it'll tell you whether you're an introvert, an extrovert, and obviously everything's controversial. Myers-Briggs is the same, but it's still used by a lot of people, and a lot of people look at it, and it's I find it very interesting. So 16personalities.com, the link is in the chat box. Go out and find the test and do it, and maybe you can find out more about yourselves as well. I mean, TJ, from yourself as well, I don't know whether you'd consider yourself an extrovert, an introvert, but I mean, just in terms of the challenges that are coming to this industry and maybe having a look at it, especially now that you're at a point where you're helping younger creatives come through the process and helping them and guiding them. I mean, what are your thoughts on introverts making it in the industry and not needing substances? Because I also think that's the other problem. Sometimes introverted personalities think substances will help me become more extroverted. So how do we help maybe some introverts realize that this is a good, safe space for them and their personalities and who they are as people?
Yeah, I think the first thing I'll say is that there's 3 introverts on the line right now, because I'm also an introvert.
I don't know.
So, yay, introvert.
Some of you are lying to me. Some of you are extroverts. I don't know.
I think the way to look at it, right, which is how I view it anyway, is that introvert doesn't necessarily mean that you're a quiet person who sits in the corner and doesn't talk to anyone. You know, it just means your preference is to be in a space where you don't have to expend your energy on other people or draw your energy from other people, right? Which I agree with Steph on that point. And I find, like with me, for example, in meetings, reviews, and everything, I'm usually the quietest person until I have something to say, right? And then I'll say what I have to say or ask the question I want to ask. But generally, I'm very reserved. Like even this talk right now has got me feeling very nervous, like super nervous. But the point is that when you create a space that is safe for an introvert to actually be themselves, then they actually flourish and they thrive. You know, I've found that I've been my best self at places where I wasn't expected to be over the top and have a larger than life personality, because I don't have that. You know, I can play it very well, you know, but at cost to myself, because I feel like I'm not representing myself. I feel like I'm a fraud. I feel like people are gonna catch on to me. And it makes me feel really uncomfortable within myself trying to be extroverted. And for a long time, I also did that by using alcohol, by doing coke, you know, to try and get that energy that makes me feel like I'm being an extrovert. But I'm also like a really terrible liar, so then people would say I'm on something. You know? And the important thing is allowing people to be themselves. Not everybody has that thing in them to actually just jump up and stand around and parade themselves. I think it's having self-confidence within yourself that I'm accepted for who I am, but it starts with accepting yourself for who you are, and then others will accept you as well for who you are. And then being in a place that actually nurtures you and truly appreciates and acknowledges you for yourself more than what you bring. And I think one of the things I'd actually told a young creative who started at a previous agency was something that I was told myself by a creative director. And he'd said to me that, you know what, TJ, like I can see you're being like a bit angsty and like you don't know what you're doing, what you're saying, what's going on. And I was like, hey man, like I don't know. I feel like I need to prove myself, and because you guys gave me a great opportunity, I feel like I need to prove myself in order to be seen. And what he said to me was that, dude, we hired you because you proved yourself. We hired you because you've showed us what you can do. And I think that helped to frame things for me in a way that, okay, well, I am here, I've been given this opportunity because of what I can bring. And all I really need to do is do that. I don't need to change myself. I don't need to change what I do, but just grow and develop and do more of me and bring more of myself each day. Yeah.
That's great. I saw Sibusiso had his hands up. I don't know if you wanted to add anything
Yeah,
to TJ's point.
I agree, man. Like, I think one thing that I just want to let a lot of creatives know is that, you know, you deserve to be in this industry. You know, you deserve, you know, you look at you're a senior right now, or a senior writer or art director, you deserve to be there. You know what I mean? And I think every day you need to just remind yourself that even when that doubt comes in, that somebody thinks you deserve to be there. And you need to almost let that build you or push you for that day, to get through the day, to get through the week, get through the month. Because I don't think God would have put you onto this planet if you didn't deserve to make an impact. And I think we need to, especially in this industry, we need to let young people know every day that they need it and they deserve to impact this industry in amazing ways. And I don't think sometimes that comes through. And that's why a lot of young people just give up so easily, because they look at the scale of this industry and what it is, and the you know, the client service is massive. It's a lot of people, but you can impact this industry in the smallest way. You know what I mean? So I think never lose that hope, and, you know, and doubt yourself that you can really make that impact, you know?
Yeah. Steph, I'm gonna read two comments and I'm gonna come to you, because there's a subtext between what Sibusiso and TJ are saying. But let's look at this. Babawa Makuluma, whoops, and there's somebody else put a comment in, says, there's a misconception that quiet personality equals introvert and loud equals extrovert, but it's more than that. It's about where you draw your energy from, internal versus external. Very true. And Tilesh Baga says, that's a great point, TJ. As a massive introvert, I often feel like I need to prove myself creatively and also be more of a personality. I think that's a good one, be more of a personality, because I think what the subtext is here, Steph, is almost, and again, going back to a generic phase, but it's imposter syndrome, isn't it? It's like where you get to it and you feel, I don't deserve to be here, and some luck has brought me here, and someday somebody's going to discover this. I mean,
Totally.
how real is this then?
I think, you know, it's interesting if we, sorry if I'm shaking, it's a mixture of nerves and when I get cold, and now my house is cold. So if I'm not on anything, if my jaw shakes.
Wait, actually, before we get to the important part, speak but not content, where's this famous cat? Because the famous cat's supposed to be.
Yeah, where's Moses?
Moses, there we go.
He's got terrible stage fright. He is fighting his little invisible fight under the bed.
An introverted cat. No,
yes,
that's, you know, I've never met an extroverted cat, to be honest. I think they're all.
No one's met my cat except for Fran, because it's so introverted. But anyway, it's like a make-believe cat. Imposter syndrome, yes. You know, again, whenever we ask our young creatives, what do you want to know about? What do you want to ask? They ask about imposter syndrome. And basically, I've realized that it never goes away, because people older than me and people that I look up to also talk about imposter syndrome. And it's something I struggle with, especially with, you know, as I was very late in becoming a CD, because I didn't feel like I was ready to for a long time. And now I love it, you know. And the thing is, as I'm growing in leadership, I do suffer quite immensely from it, especially on global judging stages, or you know, even Loeries committee. You do, like, I always think people send me these invites in error, that they're actually meant to someone else, and I always check. Like, I'm like, are you sure you wanted me for this jury for one show? Like, and it's terrible. It's something that I need to work on. But like, please know that it's universal, and it doesn't disqualify you. And I think that is one of the most powerful lessons: is realize when something is a phantom, and realize when something is real. And you know, bravery is not the absence of fear. It's doing shit despite of the fear. So it's normal to feel the fear. It's not normal to let the fear hold you back, or keep you hidden, or make you give up opportunities.
Yeah. You know, one of the things that's also very interesting and to put in terms, what I've been seeing a lot with a lot of people and having lots of chats about imposter syndrome is that culturally, so I'll give you my example. When I came from a background where uh, regular environment where you thought, respect your elders, never speak up, be quiet, wait till you've been spoken to, all of that kind of stuff, which is culturally forced on you. And then you come into the working world and then you're told, no, you need to stand for your ideas and you need to fight for it. And you don't know how to do it because your entire training for those 2+ decades before you get into the working world was stay quiet, be respectful, don't do all of that. So I see hands going up. I mean, how do we break through some of the conditioning that we have as we grow up to ensure that we find success in the real world?
So like you just touched on something me and my therapist spoke about like 3 weeks ago. You know, the way that I'm built, you know, from my upbringing is that, yo, you can't fail. You know, we've invested so much in you to be in advertising, in school and all of this, you can't fail. And that adds a lot of pressure on a lot of people. And I think having that, cool, you can think about that. But when you look at where you are in life or in your career, and you look at the praise that your creative directors give you, or your ECD, or your, you know, or your partner, I think that should be the thing that just gives you that relief that, okay, cool, listen, I know there's a lot of pressure from my upbringing to be the successful person, but it's the little things that I do. It's the little achievements that I can get, or little tips from my partner that I can get that just gives me that boost to go, listen, I deserve to be here. Because it does happen that your upbringing starts kind of messing with where you are now. But also know that, you know, as people are complex, and there's obviously something wrong with some of the things that you were brought up to think, but just push on and you deserve, you know what I mean? So that's it, really.
Yeah, I mean, TJ, on your side, I mean, what are your thoughts in this space?
Yeah, I mean, definitely there is the upbringing of, you know, speak when you're spoken to, respect your elders, and you're a child, what would you know? And we grow up that way. I do think that there are parts of that that are true, you know, that you do need to apply, because essentially what it's teaching you is etiquette and how to be polite, which is a very important thing that we need. I mean, if you're sitting as an intern and I don't know, your creative director can't make a meeting, and you're sitting with like the general manager and the marketing manager and all these people there, it's actually good to apply politeness and etiquette in that situation, because then also there's a level of understanding, right? But there are some points as well, or some times where you actually need to break through that and have an opinion and say what you think. Because at times, you know, you'd find that there's something that people are grappling with, and your one little comment can change the course of the whole thing. I remember for me, when the first time that I had to do that was when I just started. I was an intern, and we were having a proactive meeting at the agency. And there was a senior team who had an idea, which was pretty cool, you know, and they had this idea and they're presenting it in proactive. And our ECD and CCO were like, I mean, there's something there, but it's not quite working yet, you know, the usual proactive jargon. And then they were like, yeah. Then I remember after the meeting, my creative director came to me. He's like, you had something to say there. And I'm like, yeah, I did. He's like, why didn't you say it? I'm like, I mean, these guys have been doing this way longer than I have. I just started. So if they can't figure it out, who am I to think I'm going to figure it out, you know? And then he said to me, no, just say, have your opinion, because the space isn't a space where we're there to degrade each other or berate each other or I suppose, bring each other down, but it's to help build each other's ideas. So if you have an idea or a way to make it better, say it, you know, even if it's not the right thing, then you'll know it's not the right thing and you learn. And I was like, okay, cool. And then I actually then at the next proactive meeting, I mentioned my opinion. Turned out it was actually the solve they were looking for the whole time, you know? And I was like, wow, actually, my keeping quiet in that instance was actually going to stop a piece of good work from happening, you know? And there are times, yeah, sure, where you have to be polite, you have to have etiquette, you have to mind your words, but there's also times where say your piece, say what you think, and be aware that it might not be right, you know, because sometimes it's like, oh man, okay, no, not that one, you know, which is fine also. It's absolutely okay to make mistakes. It's absolutely okay to have a bad idea, because that's how you get to the good ones and that's how you progress.
Amazing. Jabulani Sibiya, who's one of our good friends, and we're doing quite a bit of amazing stuff. By the way, Jabu runs an amazing group called Touch, and we're doing the touch up with him. So please go have a look at more of the communications on the Loeries website and the Loeries social media sites. But anyway, just digressing. Says Snap's fingers. Yes, this is what young people need to hear. I feel like the common narrative young people get is that we should just work hard. All we know is hard work. All we know is we should be grateful. I mean, all our parents ever did was work hard and sacrifice to us and taught us the way of living. We deserve to be here and as young people, sorry. And the more we get exposed to conversations like this, the more we will feel empowered to own our narrative, own our craft, and own who we are. We deserve to be here. Absolutely. And then Sia Gianna just adds as a comment on the flip side as well, just in terms of the comments that we're just having right now, TJ. Our upbringing does make for good insights for campaigns, definitely. I guess this makes us connect more with our audience. I absolutely agree. I think one of the key things is our upbringing is valuable. That's who we are. That's how it's made us who we are. But nothing is ever perfect, is it? And sometimes in this imperfection, be it in our day-to-day job, be it in our lives, imperfection is part of life and we need to accept it. And at other times we need to work in it. You know, one of the key things that's important, I can't believe we're running out of time. We've got like the last 3 minutes. So maybe I'm going to ask you this. We have people who've come here, people who are fighting their own battles, people who are going through this invisible fight, as we've said. And some people may be already at the point where it might be substance abuse, or just destructive behavior in another way, speeding, I don't know. That was my thing. I still like, I remember when my mom passed away, I went through a destructive phase. I bought a sports car and I drove like crazy and I didn't care if I was going to ram in, which I think is the same thing like substance abuse, where you take it in and you just go, I don't care what's going to happen to me. It needs to solve the problem now. So somebody may be on the cusp of that happening right now. And if they're going to be left with one thing in terms of how to get help and how to pull themselves out of that and how to find the strength to do it, how do we do this? I mean, Steph, I'm going to come to you last and give you the parting words. So maybe just really quickly, TJ, will start with you, Sibusiso, and then Steph.
Okay, cool. So for me, the best way I can put it is in the sense of whenever anything is wrong with you, right? So if you have a cold, what do? You go to the doctor. You broke your leg, what do? You go to the doctor. You can't make it to work because your car broke down, what do? You call someone at work and let them know, right? The first thing is knowing that you have the problem and then finding the right way or the right channel or avenue to actually solve that. And I think because we are speaking about something that affects your mental health, the best place to go is to someone who helps people with mental health problems. There's organizations like SADAG, there's therapists that you can see. I know some companies even have group benefits that allow you to call helplines, etc. So I'd say that's definitely a place to go. Secondly is finding yourself, know who you are as a person and bring yourself, your best self forward without the need to I suppose, add stuff to make yourself better. Just be you.
Amazing. Such good advice, TJ. Thank you so much. Sibusiso.
I think for me, it's just very simple. I think just be kind to yourself and be kind to others, because I think when you kind to others, it will also help them with the things that they deal with. And I think that goes a long way. And I think one other thing that I want to just leave with people is maybe changing the way you ask questions. So it's not like, how can I fix this? It's, you know, if you were in my shoes, how would you deal with it? Like really figure out ways to ask questions for you to be able to figure out how to deal with things. And I think that's it. It's just be kind and really figuring out how to ask questions a little better.
Amazing. Thanks, Sibusiso. Steph, parting words.
On that note, I also, just from my own personal experience, you know, it took me a long time to speak out and to find help. And I was amazed at the support I got from, at the time at Ogilvy, from Fran, who supported me. And I thought I was so scared of going back to work because I thought everyone was going to judge me. That for a long time, I didn't tell them that I was in rehab for alcohol. I said I was in rehab for panic disorder, which was half the truth. But you know what? That people were so supportive and so caring, and don't be afraid to speak to your seniors. And I think as an industry, I have seen a couple of young people fuck out before they've even gotten started. And I think that is the saddest thing. It's like loss of potential or loss of talent, you know. Don't keep quiet. If you're worried about someone, there are ways to speak to them, just see if they're right and offer help. Like, we need to all stand together and we need to all look out for each other. And that's my parting shot.
I think that's an amazing parting shot. So just to recap very quickly from all three of you, it's basically be kind to yourself, seek help when you need it, but also really importantly is look out for people who need help. Let's take care of each other. And I think that's an amazing way for us there. And so let's take care of each other. I value all of you and all of your time today. Thank you so much for making the time. Amazing insights. Thanks to everyone that joined us as well on Zoom and on Facebook. Also, let's not forget entries. On a lighter note, entries are still open if you do want to get your Loeries entries in. Magic date is 15th of June. So please don't forget to get it in before that date. So thank you to all of you once again. And I look forward to everyone joining us next week. Cheers, everyone. Have an amazing afternoon. Have a great weekend as well as it comes up. Cheers,
Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye. Thanks, everyone. Cheers.